Welcome to NTD Evening News. Our top story tonight, House Republicans hitting a setback in passing President Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill. Fiscal hawks want even more cuts to Medicaid, threatening to derail Republican leadership's self-imposed Memorial Day deadline. Could another vote happen as soon as Sunday? Luis Martinez reports from Capitol Hill, and Kevin Hogan brings us the numbers from our data hub. Former FBI Director James Comey is under investigation for a controversial social media post. Several officials have condemned the post for appearing to threaten President Trump's life. How Trump is responding. President Trump finishes his trip to the Middle East, signing deals and strengthening ties with those countries in the face of pressure from Iran. Jack Bradley with the key takeaways. Thousands of residents forced to evacuate as Israel increases airstrikes in the Gaza Strip. And a day after the Houthis fired a missile at Israel, Israeli forces launched more airstrikes in Yemen. Jason Perry reports. The first direct peace talks between Russia and Ukraine are over without any major breakthroughs. Arian Postar has what President Trump says about the next steps.
This is NTD Evening News, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here's Tiffany Meyer.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. Fiscal hawks in the House Budget Committee voted down President Trump's big, beautiful bill. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Martinez, has more on the story.
Sadly, I'm a hard no until we get this ironed out. And I think we made progress, but it just takes time.
The House's Budget Committee went on recess right after the vote. Republican leadership will now try to negotiate with both extremes of the GOP conference over the weekend.
There are basically two different factors. There's red states and blue state folks, right? We got more red state folks in our conference, and they have concerns about it. But we have blue state people who have realities they've got to deal with at home, and they need some relief for their constituents. So I'm absolutely confident that we're going to be able to work out a compromise that everybody can live with.
New York Republicans like Congressman Mike Lawler and Nick LaLota are demanding higher caps for the state and local taxes deduction.
It takes 218 votes to pass the bill. And I've been very clear where I stand on this, and that's not going to change because Marjorie Taylor Greene throws a hissy fit on Twitter.
Well, House Freedom Caucus members like Congressman Chip Roy want to see waste, fraud, and abuse cut from Medicaid.
Someone defend to me that we give 7 times as much money to an able-bodied, often single, often male person than we do the vulnerable population for whom Medicaid was designed. And we allow states to then money launder that, which they do openly and admit it, to fatten their coffers, and we're not going to touch that?
House Republican leadership acknowledged that not everyone in the GOP conference will get 100% of their demands, but insists that the current bill is a fair compromise.
When we negotiated the first half of this two-step process, and that's the budget, the agreement was we make it a deficit-neutral bill. That was their main request. We have exceeded that. We're still moving forward with the timeline. You know, the bill will be on the floor next week.
In between the House Freedom Caucus and the SALT Caucus, there's a Republican conference pushing to pass the president's agenda and the president's tax cuts.
But at the end of the day, we have to find that sweet spot where everybody comes together on the same page and deliver for the president. We're very, very close on this.
It remains to be seen if President Trump will get involved in the negotiations as he did earlier this year during the budget battle. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Martinez, NTD News.
And how much would those proposed Medicaid cuts save taxpayers? Our data reporter Kevin Hogan joined NTD's Don Ma to break it down.
So, Kevin, can you talk to us about how much would the Republicans' proposal save taxpayers?
Well, Don, this could be hundreds of billions of dollars. Specifically, according to the Congressional Budget Office, that's almost $1 trillion that they're aiming to get. That's $880 billion by 2034. They have outlined about $650 billion, but that's their big target right there. So when you look into this more, you start to understand that Medicaid is a very, very widely used program offering health insurance to people who may have disabilities or lower income Americans or others. That's 71 million Americans who are enrolled in this right now. That's according to Medicaid.gov. That's 2024 data that we're looking at, right? And so the Kaiser Family Foundation found that in 2023 fiscal year, that's $880 billion that was spent on Medicaid, right? So this means that Republicans are aiming to save about the entire annual budget over the course of 10 years, right? So furthermore, you look at where the savings are actually coming from. We're looking at data from the House Energy and Commerce Committee right now. That's about $300 billion in these savings that are coming from what they call community engagement. That means work requirements. So the Republicans say that people should work 80 hours a week, 80 hours a month, or they should be enrolled in education programs, or they should be doing volunteering. So by removing those people who they say are able-bodied and should not be on Medicaid, those people then would not be part of this eligibility. So they make those $300 billion savings. Now you add in a couple other eligibility requirements that they're putting in here, and a few other things like providing no new provider taxes. What does that mean? Well, that states tax the healthcare providers, and they take that money and the federal government matches it, and that's what they use to fund their state Medicaid programs in part. So that would mean that if they don't raise taxes, the federal government doesn't have to pay as much. You toss in some other, and that's where you're getting that $650 billion right about there. So that's where the savings are coming from, Don.
And as well, in the Republicans' plan, whose Medicaid coverage would be affected?
Well, this could be millions of Americans that are affected by this if they do eventually pass this. Again, the Congressional Budget Office shows that about 10.3 million Americans would be off of Medicaid under the Republicans' plan, and that's among them 7.6 million with no insurance at all as it pertains to this program. And that's within about a decade, by 2034, right? So you ask, okay, who are the people that would no longer be on the program in Republicans' plan? Well, that includes people who are able-bodied, they say. These are, again, work requirements right here. And this, just to give you an example, this is the NTD interpolation right here. We have data from the Congressional Budget Office, but this data is not exactly outlined, whereas about 5 million people right here for the work requirements, those people would no longer be involved. But again, you have people who are going to go on Obamacare, you have people who are illegal immigrants. These are all people that the Republicans say should not be on that Medicaid program. And so you add all that up, a couple people that would eventually go on their employer's insurance. That's about that 10 million mark that you're seeing right there, those 10 million Americans. So again, some of them are still insured. This is people who would be insured under Medicare, for example, or other programs, no longer on Medicaid. But again, it's the people who are in the country, an unauthorized entry, and also people who are able-bodied, ready to work. Those people would no longer be part of the Medicaid enrollment. So there's a number circulating. This 13.7 million people who are uninsured that would be kicked off. This is Illinois Senator Dick Durbin, U.S. Senator. He's taking this number and saying that that's how much the Republicans' bill would eventually, that's how many Americans who are uninsured after the Republicans pass this bill, if they do. But that number has a little bit more context involved. So that's that 7 or 8 million who would be uninsured that we were talking about. But added on would be the 5 million that would ultimately lose their insurance because existing laws would expire. So that number is basically adding that back in and calling it the Republicans' proposal, but in fact, it wouldn't be part of their bill at all. So now there's a little bit of pushback again to this, and Families USA today says that everyday Americans must call on Congress to oppose these draconian cuts that will rip health care from millions of Americans and raise costs for millions more. So you might ask, well, if they're taking off Medicare, how does that affect costs for other people who are Medicaid? How does that affect other people? Well, you have a very complex healthcare system in this country. If some hospitals now are providing people with uncompensated services because they're no longer insured, that puts a strain on them. Those costs may translate into other Americans' pockets. Don?
Okay, thank you very much, Kevin.
Former FBI Director James Comey is under investigation for a controversial social media post. Several officials have condemned the post for appearing to threaten President Trump's life. The now deleted Instagram post showed what Comey called a shell formation, making up the numbers 8647. Officials in the Trump administration said this was a veiled threat against Trump, the 47th president of the U.S. The Merriam-Webster dictionary says 86 is sometimes used to informally mean to get rid of. Comey has denied knowing about the connotation. He says he took the post down because he opposes violence of any kind. Current FBI Director Kash Patel said on X the Bureau is working with the Secret Service to investigate Comey. In an interview with Fox News' special report with Brett Baer, Trump commented on this issue.
Exactly what that meant. A child knows what that meant. If you're the FBI director and you don't know what that meant assassination. And it says it loud and clear. Now, he wasn't very competent, but he was competent enough to know what that meant. And he did it for a reason, and he was hit so hard because people like me, and they like what's happening with our country. Our country's become respected again, and all this. And he's calling for the assassination of the president.
Obviously, he apologized and said he doesn't.
Well, he
wasn't
apologized because he was
violence. But
look, he's a very bad.
What do you want to see happen? What do you want to see happen?
I don't want to take a position on it because that's going to be up to Pam and all of the great people. But I will say this: I think it's a terrible thing.
President Trump's heading back to Washington after securing billions of dollars in investments into the U.S. This was his first state visit abroad during his second term. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has the highlights.
We have, at the same time, 150 countries.
President Trump wrapping up his third and final stop on his Middle East trip, leaving Abu Dhabi on Friday morning and becoming the first U.S. president to visit the United Arab Emirates in nearly 30 years. His trip was marked by a series of investment deals for the U.S. and strengthening ties diplomatically. Starting in Saudi Arabia, the country that committed to invest $600 billion in the U.S., Trump announced that he's lifting U.S. sanctions on Syria there.
I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness.
He later met in Qatar with the new leader of Syria, a first in 25 years. Syria had a recent regime change, and Trump's recognition of Syria may soon bring the Gulf countries closer to the U.S. and thus weaken Iran's influence in the region.
If you get Qatar and Saudi Arabia, you pull them out of the Chinese orbit, which is protecting Iran. You pull them away from Iran, and you essentially isolate Iran. And then if you impose sanctions, Iran really starts facing binary choices. You're alone, you're sanctioned, you're blockaded, the Chinese can't help you, the rest of the region's abandoned you, and the Israelis are about to come after you. So you have a choice. Give up your nuclear program and join this happy family, or pursue that, but then you're going to face the consequences.
And Trump saying the U.S. has proposed a nuclear deal to Iran.
They have a proposal, but more importantly, they know they have to move quickly. Something bad's going to happen.
While Trump was in Qatar, and by the way, a first ever for a U.S. president, he secured a $240 billion economic deal there. That includes Qatar's $96 billion purchase of U.S. aircraft, specifically Boeing jets. And Trump says Qatar is also gifting the U.S. a 747 to be used as the next Air Force One. Trump then finishing up his trip to the UAE, which pledged a $200 billion investment to the U.S. That's on top of the UAE's commitment back in March to invest $1.4 trillion in the U.S. over the next decade. The UAE is the only one of these countries to sign on to the Abraham Accords, which opens diplomatic relations with Israel. Trump urged the other leaders he met with to sign on as well. Trump considered taking a detour from his trip to Turkey, where there were the first talks between Russian and Ukrainian officials since the start of the war. Now, the two sides agreed to exchange 1,000 prisoners of war each, but falling short of a ceasefire. Trump said the only way for that to happen is if he meets with Putin. And by the way, that may soon be on the horizon.
We have to meet. He and I will meet. I think we'll solve it, or maybe not, but at least we'll know. And if we don't solve it, be very interesting.
The president said that his administration will be making trade deals with 150 countries, and that they'll soon be sending out letters to those countries telling them what they'll be paying to do business with the U.S. Reporting by Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Thousands of residents in the Gaza Strip are moving once again as Israeli forces have increased airstrikes in the territory. In a day after the Houthis fired a missile at Israel, Israeli forces launched more airstrikes in Yemen. NTD's Jason Perry has the latest.
On Friday, residents in the Gaza Strip surrounded the remains of a building that was destroyed by a reported Israeli airstrike. A man sitting nearby said his cousin and his cousin's wife and children were killed in the strike.
We don't know what to do for them. We are using a hammer and a saw to try. I don't know if we can.
And he said he's not sure where to go now for safety.
We went to the south. We were targeted in the south. We came to Gaza City. We were targeted in Gaza City. Where should we go? Where should we go? We have no one but God.
On Friday, Israeli forces said they had increased airstrikes in the territory, reportedly hitting more than 150 terrorist targets in the past day. And a couple of days before that, Israel issued evacuation orders to people in several districts in Gaza City, which is in northern Gaza, forcing thousands of people to leave the area. One of the residents said he didn't know where to go to for safety as well.
Where should I go today? I go to West Gaza. There is bombing in West Gaza. I go to the south. They are killing people in Khan Yunis. I go to Deir al-Balah. There is bombing in Deir al-Balah. Where should I go?
Israel also previously said that they would be taking control over parts of the Gaza Strip as they try to defeat Hamas and free the remaining hostages. The father of a deceased hostage spoke at the United Nations on Thursday.
If you look at the kid, he's a fun-loving kid. Didn't have much to care about. But for over 19 months, Hamas have not been willing to acknowledge, A, that he is in their possession, and B, what is his physical status.
President Trump was asked on Friday if he thought Israel would be able to free the remaining hostages.
I don't know. We're going to find out pretty soon. We're going to know pretty soon. They're not in good shape, as you know, but we'll be working with them to get them out.
And he added this about the war in the Gaza Strip.
I think a lot of good things are going to happen over the next month, and we're going to see. We have to help also out the Palestinians. You know, a lot of people are starving on Gaza, so we have to look at both sides.
And on Thursday, sirens rang out in Israel as the Houthi terrorist group in Yemen said they fired another missile at Israel, the second in 2 days. Israel said they intercepted it and no injuries were reported. And on Friday, Israeli forces said they carried out more than 30 strikes on Houthi terrorist targets in Yemen. Jason Berry, NTD News.
The first direct peace talks between Russia and Ukraine are over after less than 2 hours. There's no apparent sign of progress so far in closing the gap between the two sides. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has more on the outcome of the talks.
Delegations from Russia, Ukraine, the US and Turkey meeting in Istanbul on Friday. The first direct talks between Russia and Ukraine since the start of the conflict ended after less than 2 hours. Expectations for a major breakthrough were already low before the meeting, but they were lowered even further when Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin said they won't attend the talks. President Trump now says he will set up a meeting with Putin.
I think it's time for us to just do it. I said, they all said Putin was going and Zelensky was going, and I said, if I don't go, I guarantee Putin's not going. And he didn't go, and I understand that, but we're going to get it. We're going to get it done. We got to get it done.
Russia decided to send a delegation of low-level officials to Friday's talks. Ukraine and its allies accuse Putin of stalling, saying he's not serious about wanting peace. But on a positive note, Kiev and Moscow agreed to exchange 1,000 prisoners of war from each side. That's according to Ukraine's defense minister, who represented Kiev at the talks.
We have agreed to exchange 1,000 persons to 1,000, and we're working on other modalities, and our colleagues are in contact and will exchange all the documents.
Ukraine's deputy foreign minister is calling for a direct meeting between Zelensky and Putin.
The pressure on the Russian Federation must continue. We should not really relax at this point. And there are many issues that can be resolved if only the leaders can meet.
The European Union is now already increasing the pressure on Russia's Putin, who didn't join the talks. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is announcing more sanctions against Russia.
We are ready to do more to bring Putin to the negotiation table. Many of the speakers mentioned it. This war has to end. You said it, Georgia. You said it, Keir. Volodymyr has described with others the roller coaster of the last days.
The new package includes sanctions on the Nord Stream pipelines, listing more vessels in Russia's shadow fleet and lowering the oil price cap. It also includes more sanctions on Russia's financial sector. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
The Supreme Court today has temporarily barred the Trump administration from removing alleged Venezuelan gang members held in a northern Texas facility under the Alien Enemies Act. In a 7-2 decision, the High Court overturned a lower court decision that dismissed emergency claims filed by the detainees. The majority said it was an error for the lower court to dismiss the case when the plaintiffs were facing immediate and imminent deportation. According to the Supreme Court's order, the lower court's inaction in the face of possibly irreparable consequences may have the effect of refusing to stop it. The court reiterated its ruling in a similar case where they ordered that under the Alien Enemies Act, the detainees must receive notice and an opportunity to seek relief before removal. The case was sent back to the lower court for further proceedings. Coming up, the FDA is starting a stronger review process for food chemicals, specifically ones commonly found in ultra-processed food. And NJ Transit engineers are on strike, halting all rail service and leaving over 300,000 riders looking for alternative commutes. Chris Bob has the latest from Penn Station when we come back. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. The Food and Drug Administration is launching a new review of food chemicals already allowed on the market. House Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says the FDA is also looking into a popular abortion pill that's been FDA approved since 2000. NTD correspondent Jason Blair reports.
You can count on this FDA to take a hard look at food chemicals when scientists raise concerns about them.
The FDA says that they are launching a, quote, stronger, more systematic review process for food chemicals that are already on the market. Some examples are BHA, BHT, and titanium dioxide.
You will often see these chemicals on the ingredient list of ultra-processed foods.
McCary says that many of these chemicals are banned in other countries. And in the coming months, the FDA will be releasing an evidence-based plan prioritizing these reviews.
Childhood obesity and chronic diseases are not a willpower problem. We have to take a look at root causes, like what's in our nation's food supply.
And at a Senate hearing on Wednesday, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was asked by Senator Josh Hawley about a study done on a popular abortion pill.
The biggest study on mifepristone done, I think, ever, and it showed that nearly 11% of women experience very serious adverse health effects, to include sepsis, hemorrhaging, infection, of course, emergency room visits.
Kennedy said that he's familiar with the study and he's directed Commissioner McCary to do a full review.
And it's alarming, and clearly it indicates that at very least the label should be changed.
The study Hawley was referring to was published by the Ethics and Public Policy Center. It looked at insurance claims data from about 866,000 women who were prescribed mifepristone abortions between 2017 and 2023. RFK Jr. said that the review is a top priority but did not have a timeline for completion. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
In addition to the new food chemicals review process, the HHS is reportedly planning to stop recommending COVID shots to pregnant women and children. How are everyday Americans viewing these developments? NTD's Sam Wong was out on the National Mall in D.C. to hear from them.
The FDA is launching a new review process for food chemicals that are already on the market. So what do you make of that policy change right there?
I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, my stomach don't like the food in the U.S. compared to living overseas. Coke, the chips, they're all made with different ingredients to match what they'll take overseas, and yet they keep the junk in ours. It's a problem.
We have more chemicals in our food than anywhere else in the world. You know, there are things that are illegal in other countries that are in our food, so it would be good to look into it then.
Yeah, no, that sounds fine. You know, to keep up with, you know, maybe finding out new science and new information. I don't know if it was Asian or European countries. They were comparing the foods, similar foods like cereals and things like that here, and how much natural fruit and juices and things like that were put for coloration purposes.
Coming up, the HHS is reportedly going to stop recommending routine COVID vaccination for children and pregnant women. What do you make of that?
I'll just say it's a hard one to say. There's certainly values to some of it, but there's a lot of unknowns. I'm not a big fan of vaccines, but I do see the purpose from all the other pandemics and issues that took place.
If COVID shots are recommended by the medical professionals who are doing the research, then by all means, why aren't we following that?
I'm all for that because not everybody really needs one, especially like young kids. I work in a children's hospital. I'm a respiratory therapist. I saw close and personal. And I saw what it did to the adults too. So, yeah, not everybody needs one.
A strike by New Jersey Transit engineers has brought statewide rail service to a halt, stranding over 300,000 daily riders, including thousands commuting to New York City. With trains down, many are scrambling for alternate travel or working from home. NTD's Chris Bobb has more.
A minute after midnight today, train engineers with the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainsmen started their strike against New Jersey Transit. This is affecting 300,000 customers who use New Jersey Transit daily. Now, it's also affecting 70,000 commuters who make the trip from New Jersey to New York to work. Right behind me, you can see the gates are closed at New York's Penn Station for New Jersey Transit customers. They have some customer service representatives who have been directing customers who are concerned that they might not be able to get back to alternative routes for transportation. We spoke to a few of those customers. Here's what they had to say. Where are you trying to go?
To New Jersey, to my daughter's graduation. What happened to the train to Jersey? That's what I want to know. What?
There's a strike. Yeah.
Until when?
We don't know. Did you know that there was a strike?
No. We came like 3 days ago. We didn't know that there was a strike because we were having a car in New Jersey airport we need to take. So, who's going to pay for that?
You.
Yeah, probably.
How are you thinking of getting back to New Jersey?
Take a boat, an airplane, whatever. Let's call Elon to take us away with a rocket, right?
I'm going to New Jersey. I was told where the New Jersey Transit are not working. We have to go outside the outskirts of this terminal to get, the PATH train and then see if they can help us to New Jersey terminal.
At 10 a.m. this morning, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy held a press conference. He addressed both customers as well as the union itself.
It is frankly a mess of their own making, and it is a slap in the face of every commuter and worker who relies on NJ Transit. What the people of New Jersey need right now is for the members of the BLET to step up and meet their obligations to the public. Let's end this strike.
Mark Wallace, the national president of the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainsmen, said that this really comes down to fair pay.
Well, we're asking for fair pay. We make almost $10 an hour less than all of the other locomotive engineers in the region in commuter service. We are the lowest paid commuter engineers in the nation, and we're asking for a fair pay package. That's all we're asking for, nothing more.
Next Monday, New Jersey Transit will put in place a bus service which will allow some of those customers who are affected by the strike to switch to buses, but it will only accommodate about 20% of those who use trains. Chris Bobb, NTD News, New York.
Coming up, Duke University's China ties are raising concerns. Melina Weiskup has more on why lawmakers are calling for the closure of its China-based campus. And Shen Performing Arts wrapped up the final show of its 2025 season on May 11th. This year, the New York-based dance company performed for an estimated 1 million plus theatergoers, despite bomb hoaxes and other threats. Shen Emcee Lishai Lemish joins us to discuss after the break. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Lawmakers are raising concerns about the Chinese Communist Party's ties to Duke University. They're concerned about the Chinese regime's access to sensitive defense-related technology. NTD's Melina Weiskup has more details.
Chairman of the Education Committee and Select Committee on the CCP are sounding the alarm on Duke University's China-based campus, Duke Kunshan University, DKU. DKU was established in 2018 as a joint institute between Duke and Wuhan University. Wuhan University is a direct extension of the Chinese military and intelligence apparatus. The lawmakers told Duke University President Vincent Price in a 7-page letter, Wuhan University administration and faculty members hold joint appointments at DKU, positioning them to directly influence research priorities, train students, and recruit talent in critical fields targeted by Beijing's military-civil fusion strategy, including defense-grade energy systems, artificial intelligence, and biotechnology. They say Duke has already transferred sensitive technology through the partnership, citing a surveillance camera created by Duke University researchers in 2012. It cost $25 million in tax dollars. Today, this Duke-developed technology serves the CCP's vast surveillance apparatus, oppressing millions of people throughout China, including in Tiananmen Square, the chairman wrote. The report notes 4 other U.S. higher education facilities that have cut their joint ventures with the Chinese Communist Party. Earlier this month, lawmakers passed a bill to restrict DHS funding to universities that partner with the Chinese regime.
These talent recruitment programs are a win-win for China. China wins twice. First, U.S. taxpayers are funding their research, not China. And second, China then uses the research it would not have otherwise had to advance its own economic and military interests.
Additionally, a group of Democrats and Republicans have introduced a bill to prevent the Chinese Communist Party from accessing advanced U.S. semiconductor chips. The lawmaker said this is needed because the U.S.'s export controls on advanced chips isn't working due to smuggling, loopholes, and technological advancements. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
A Duke University spokesperson confirmed the institute received a letter from Representatives Molinar and Wahlberg. The spokesperson said, quote, Duke's respects Congress's important oversight role and will work to further educate Congress about Duke's global education mission. Los Angeles is aiming for a car-free Olympic Games, and that may include taking to the skies. A new air taxi service could change the way people travel to and from major venues in 2028. NTD's Christina Corona tells us more from Los Angeles.
Fans, athletes, and VIPs could soon fly their way to the Olympic venues in 2028, using the first ever air taxis at the Olympic Games. And some of them may be landing right here at LA Memorial Coliseum. LA28 has named Archer Aviation as the official air taxi provider for the Olympics and Team USA. Archer's electric aircraft, known as Midnight, will carry up to 4 passengers between vertiports at key locations across the city. Flights will last just 10 to 20 minutes, making it one of the fastest ways to get around during the games. The planned vertiport network includes SoFi Stadium in Inglewood and the LA Memorial Coliseum, which are set to host the opening and closing ceremonies. Other locations include LAX, Hollywood, Santa Monica, and Orange County. Midnight features 12 engines and multiple propellers while producing less noise and emissions than a traditional helicopter. LA28 chairperson and President Casey Wasserman says the goal is to build a platform for constant innovation and creativity, which is why they've partnered with Archer Aviation. He says their vision is to reimagine the Olympic and Paralympic Games experience, and this partnership is a chance to deliver something truly unprecedented, showcasing the very best of Los Angeles on the world stage. The San Jose-based company is currently working through the certification process with the FAA and other aviation agencies before the aircraft can begin commercial operation. Pretty soon we'll be seeing flying passengers over Los Angeles. Archer's news release didn't indicate how much the flights would cost or who would get first access. Reporting from the city of Los Angeles, Christina Corona, NTD News.
Shen Performing Arts wrapped up the final show of its 2025 season on May 11th. This year, the New York-based dance company performed for an estimated 1 million plus theatergoers, attending more than 760 shows. Shen visited major cities across the Americas, Europe, Asia, and Australia to rave reviews. The performers successfully completed the season, despite numerous threats made against them in an effort to derail the shows. Shen Yun's mission of reviving traditional Chinese culture before communism has long made it a target of the Chinese regime. NTD is a proud media sponsor of Shen Yun. Joining us now to discuss is Li-Shine Lemish. He's a master of ceremonies for Shen Yun. Li-Shine, thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you now as one of the MCs. What was the most memorable part of this season?
Oh, goodness. Certainly the bomb threat at the Kennedy Center was up there, standing outside in the cold for 3 hours and then rushing through the rest of setup to get ready for a 12-show run there. But it was very successful, and the audience came out and was very supportive. So that was definitely memorable. I really enjoyed this year meeting a lot of audience members after the show. We had a lot of VIP receptions, had a lot of interviews. And so I really got to talk to audience members and hear directly from them how much they enjoyed the performance. And just all the compliments that they had for the different performers and the sound engineers and everybody in the company. So that was really wonderful for me. And I think we had a lot of highlights this year. We had 6 weeks of performances in Italy, about the same in Japan and the same in the UK. Those are really breakthroughs in terms of how many shows and still not enough, really. And then we had an 18-show run at Lincoln Center, where in spite of some of the attacks that we've been facing and including in some media, they were pretty much sold out and really tremendous audience review. So it was a very successful tour, but it's also good to be back home with the family, and soon we'll be getting ready for next year.
I do want to dig into that last part because it does seem that this season came amidst increased threats. Talk to us about some of those. How close were some of the shows getting to being canceled in some places?
We had one show in France that was delayed a little bit. That was because there was a bomb threat that had been received. And at that time, there wasn't as much awareness that these were scare tactics and that these were empty threats, even though every time they're taken very seriously, the police and investigates, they have the canines. But we really noticed this pattern, and the emails were almost identical or even identical in some cases, as were the sender emails. And then later, actually in Taiwan, they discovered that they pinpointed the sender to Huawei Research Institute in China, in Shanxi. But we really didn't have any serious interruption with our shows. There was a slight delay there in France. We had tornadoes in Birmingham that was more of a disruption really than the bomb threats.
When Mother Nature even stepped in. Well, one notable case seems to have been in South Korea, where a court ruling allowed previously canceled Shenyang performances to go ahead. Another example of a growing number of government bodies taking a stand against the Chinese regime's transnational repression.
Yeah, that was very heartening to see. South Korea has been a battleground for the Chinese Communist Party for years. I think they feel like it's in their backyard. They should be able to control it. And the same kind of tactics that they use in the United States and in other strong democracies around the world of threatening theaters, trying to cancel our contracts, threatening politicians, they don't work here. But for years, they've worked in South Korea, and there's been a back and forth battle to get our shows to be allowed to perform. There's certainly the demand for it, and you see the reviews from top, VIPs in Korea from all walks of life. They just love it, including Chinese people who live in South Korea or are traveling there. But it's fighting. It seems to be fighting for its rights and freedoms there. And what happened is, in this case, the university was under pressure from the Ministry of Education, which controls the university, which controlled the theater in the university. And this was under direct pressure from the Chinese embassy, the CCP. And eventually a court stood up and said, no, you cannot cancel the show. You don't have a good reasons to do it. The show must go on. And it did. And then the university theater told us they actually were on our side. They didn't want the shows to be canceled, but they were put in this position. There's nothing they could do about it. So we were very happy to see the South Korean court take that stance, defend the rights of the Korean people. And we hope it's a sign of things to come, because there's certainly the demand. In Japan, we perform 6+ weeks. We can definitely do that in South Korea as well. There's the audience demand for it. We just need, because the theaters there, a lot of them are government run or university run, which is also government run. And they're very susceptible to pressure from the CCP. But once they stand up and they realize, this pressure has no teeth. If we just stand up for our rights and say, no, this is South Korea, not the PRC, we will have whatever show we want, then the show continues. And that's what we're looking forward to.
And despite all of those difficulties, we've heard rave reviews from audiences. What are some noteworthy audience reactions this year that stood out to you?
I met a woman in Pittsburgh who I just met her in the lobby as I was going to meet, I think was a councilman from the county there who was giving us a proclamation. And she stopped us and she said, I've seen the show pretty much every year for maybe 7 years. And I'm coming back in 2 days to see your matinee on Sunday. This was on Friday. So, we sometimes meet audience members like that. It's an annual tradition for them. They come with their family and they bring different friends to different shows. That's really been nice to see. What I really enjoyed is how audience members talked about how the show is uplifting, how they found that the values that are, yes, they're traditional Chinese stories and virtues, but they really resonated with them and their life. And they found that inspiring and uplifting. And they said they were coming to the show, they were expecting to get a cultural and a beautiful kind of artistic representation. They weren't expecting to be inspired. And that's really nice to hear that from the audience members directly. And we had quite a few conversations like that this year.
Well, speaking of that family tradition, each year Shenyang has a brand new show with new stories, choreography, the whole works. What can you tell us about the preparation that goes into each year's show? What's next?
Well, I can tell you that I know absolutely nothing about next year's production. I think the choreographers and composers probably have some ideas and some things in the works, but having just come back from tour, it's a surprise to us. It's always exciting in the middle of summer when the dances and the music start to roll out. We see them for the first time as they're being worked through and getting fine-tuned to see what the stories are going to be for next year. So we discover them just a few months ahead of the audience members. But we're going to go on a bit of vacation here, take some time with our family, maybe travel, surprisingly, even after we've been traveling for months, maybe travel some more. And then we come back and it's rehearsal season very soon. And then we fine-tune it over the fall and get ready to hit the road again right around Christmas.
Very busy schedule indeed. Lee Shalemish, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Coming up in the NBA playoffs, the Celtics look to stay alive tonight in Game 6, while the Knicks go for the knockout. Dave Martin brings us a preview after the break. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. The New York Knicks haven't advanced to the conference finals in a quarter century, but that could all change with a win tonight. NTD's Dave Martin has more.
A crucial Game 6 awaits the Knicks and Celtics tonight at historic Madison Square Garden, with the Celtics hoping to extend the series and the Knicks looking for the knockout punch. Boston staved off elimination Wednesday night, routing New York just days after losing All-Star Jason Tatum to a ruptured Achilles.
I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, this team's been around a long time. They've done stuff together. I think it was just we did what was necessary to do what we needed to do to get back to New York. So made winning plays on both ends of the floor. Each guy, everybody in that locker room has another layer that they can get to. And, they did that as the game went on, and we just have to continue to do that. But it's a credit to the guys in the locker room get another shot to play.
That we didn't play for 48 minutes. And, the start of the second quarter, we didn't play well. We had a lead. Didn't play tough with the lead. Came out to start the third. Didn't play well there. You can't afford to do that.
The series has been marked by the Knicks' incredible late-game comebacks, stealing games 1 and 2 on the road after trailing by 20 points in both games. Boston, meanwhile, will be looking for a strong performance from center Kristaps Porzingis, who was limited to just 12 minutes in Game 5 while suffering from a viral illness. Tonight's game starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Elsewhere in the league, Denver will face Oklahoma City Sunday in a winner-take-all Game 7 after the Nuggets won Game 6 last night. Denver was led by guard Jamal Murray, who was listed as questionable before the game began with an illness, yet ended up starring for the Nuggets with 25 points.
I woke up, was feeling it, went to the clinic, got tested for a couple different things. It was negative, so happy about that. But I was always going to play in my mind. So I'm glad we got the win. Give ourselves some life and a chance to win the series. Everything was kind of bothering me, but I mean, kind of once the game starts and the team needs you and adrenaline kicks in, you see a couple shots go in or whatever, you just kind of suck it up and then get through it. So.
I knew he was going to play. Obviously a do-or-die situation for them. And they came out with that sense of urgency and jumped on us right away. If we want to get a W the next game, we can't let that happen.
Historically speaking, Game 7s have not been kind to road teams, with the visitors winning just 25% of the time. Sunday's Game 7 is scheduled to start at 3:30 Eastern Time in Oklahoma City. This is Dave Martin for NTD News.
And coming up after our show, how one mother's vision sparked a mission to improve education across the country. Erica Donald shares her journey from school board member to charter school founder and what drives her to reshape education tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Capitol Report. And that's all for today's news. Round-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Good night.